Hey guys, what's going on? So if you followed my racing this year, one of the common things that have been popping up is I've been spending some time in Germany on the Nurburgring. Now, a lot of people have been questioning kind of what I was doing there, and some of the racing was there. Now, obviously, the majority of the amateur racing I do is here in the States, WRL, just did HSR, again, things like that. Probably going to do Thunder Hill this year again. And those are pretty accessible, and you can kind of, talk to people about running in those series. Now, running in the Nurburgring is a little bit different. I feel like that's probably the dream of most car guys, to go there one day and do a track day, do some tourist laps there. But I kind of really wanted to race there, and it's a little bit of a harder thing to do, especially when it's out of the country and you have a lot of questions on it. I kind of going to go over a little bit what I did to get over there. I raced in a series called RCN. And there's a lot of videos on YouTube, and you can Google kind of what the series is. But basically, in layman's terms, it's kind of like a glorified track day. It's like a 12 race schedule, and the majority of these, I think probably like 11 out of the 12 races, are time trial based. It's not position based racing like traditional racing is, but it's more about setting an average time. You're going to do a couple laps generally. I think it's 12. You'll do a set lap. 10 push laps and another set lap trying to match that, and it's points based, and through some type of mathematics you kind of average out, but again, it's still probably one of the most challenging things I've ever done. I decided to do RCN racing because long-term goal, which it sounds kind of far-fetched, but you never know, but I one day would like to run the 24 hours of the Nurburgring, which is a different series, which is NLS. And to run that, you have to have a Nurburgring permit, and in order to get that, you got to start somewhere, and one of the requirements is to do a couple RCN races, or there's a school there they do, and so I kind of chose going the RCN route. Now, RCN racing is definitely open to amateurs there in Europe, but one of the hard things that you're going to find if you decide to go there and race RCN is you need one of these, which is an FIA license. I applied for mine a couple years ago, even before I was even going to do anything in the IMSA side here in the States. This has been my radar to do as a bucket list thing, to go there and not only run the ring and do some tourist laps there, which I've had great enjoyment doing this year, but I really wanted to go there to compete. And so to run an RCN, that's one of the requirements. If you're going to decide to go there, you're going to find that racing in Europe is way cheaper than it is here in the States. To give you an idea, in a car I was driving, I went over there with Ring Freaks, and I think on the website right now they'll quote you 4,000 euros, which right now the exchange rate's probably darn near right at $4,000, to go there and to do an RCN race, which is about 14 laps. And again, it's about a 2-hour event. I would rather go there and spend that kind of money than, say, rent a Miata here in WRL. So granted, you're going to have some pretty serious travel to get to Germany. Coincidentally, I've been to the ring 3 times this year. The first time I was supposed to do my first ever RCN. I got there, and the day of the race, the track was under about a foot of snow. The second time I went there, and I kind of made a vacation out of it, so I spent about a week in Nurburgring and did a bunch of TF tourist laps, and I drove a bunch of different cars. And during the race, which I was doing very well in, I had a flat tire. And so, again, trying to get my Nurburgring permit, I had to complete one of these races. And so I went back a third time just a couple weeks ago and actually completed the race. And a couple oddities about it. The third time I went, most of these races are around the traditional Nordschleife Nurburgring circuit that we've all played on Gran Turismo. The last time I went there, it was actually more of the NLS configuration, which is the Grand Prix circuit and the Nordschleife combined. And I didn't know this till I got there, so that was kind of a shock, but we kind of figured it out. So didn't do as well as I wanted to position-wise. I think I was like 22nd out of like 35 or whatever it was. But I was able to complete the full race, and now I'm eligible to apply for my Nurburgring permit. So for those of you guys that kind of want to do RCN here in the States, again, there's a lot of information out there about how to actually go about doing it. And how the format is. But again, for us here in the U.S., the biggest hurdle is trying to get an FIA license. So if you guys are with the SCCA, you can apply through there using your SCCA experience. There's 6 clubs. I think it's the NHRA, drag racing coincidentally. IMSA, you can get one through SCCA, USAC, and think IndyCar and NASCAR are the other ones that you can kind of go to your administrator there and say, hey, I'd like to apply for an FIA license, and ACAS here in the United States will issue you one of these. So even if you get a FIA license here in the States, you have to make sure it says International Class C. So I actually had to pay like $150 to get the international rating put onto my FIA license. Once you do that, you can kind of reach out to a couple of teams there. And again, it's just like it is here, and it's probably more so arrive and drive for RCN. Again, for about $4,000, you can get into like an E93 series like I did, which is the class is VT4, which is a very, very healthy class. One of the races I did the second time I went in September, I think it was like a 35 car or 40 car VT4 field. But you can go anything from a Suzuki Swift, which they have classes for, up to a TCR, M2 CSR, things like that, Cayman GT4. So it just depends on how much you want to spend. So I reached out to Ring Freaks, and they were fantastic the couple times I've rented. I'll be going back next year to do a couple more of these, and hopefully knock off an LS race or two, kind of pursue that long-term goal. You never know, maybe doing the 24-hour there. So reach out there. There's a couple, if you go to any of the Race Cars Directs forums online, a lot of teams do arrive and drive there. Just kind of read around, because just like here in the States, there's damage clauses and things like that. There's really no practice when you go there for an RCN race. There's not like a practice day. So you're going to want to plan your trip around going there, either renting a car or trying to get into the car you're actually going to race, and running some tourist laps and paying the €30 a lap. Again, most of the races are run on the full Nordschleife, so you'll have the entire straightaway to actually do, which is a little hard to mimic in a TF lap, so you kind of want to work around that. And then understand the format. Again, it's a little bit complicated, but again, too, it's a set lap, a bunch of push laps, another set lap, and on your set laps, you kind of want to get them within a couple seconds, otherwise you'll be penalized. So once you kind of wrap your head around it, it's pretty easy. They actually put little ticker tape so you can tear off every single lap there. There's a pit stop in between. And so that's another good point. Actually, I think all RCN races, you can actually do these with two drivers to split the cost. So if it's a $4,000 seat, you can split it amongst two drivers. Obviously, at that point, you're only driving 6 or 7 laps in the event. To get a Nurburgring permit, from my understanding, you have to complete one RCN race by yourself. And if you split with a driver, then you got to do 2. So they kind of split up like that. So it was important for me that I wanted to get this done as quickly as I could. And so originally I should have been there one time. It ended up being 3 just because of the circumstances. But the last time I completed it by myself. So when I go apply for my permit, which I'm in the process of doing, I shouldn't have any issues with the experience portion of it. So again, do a little research on that. It's very accessible for somebody here in the States to go there and compete RCN and kind of make their way into NLS, which I'm trying to do on that journey right now. But again, a little bit of hurdles with the licensing. As far as travel, I think that 2 of the trips I did this year, one of them I made a vacation. The other 2 I did on a weekend. I literally left work one time on a Thursday night, drove to Orlando, flew there overnight, was at the ring Friday there, Saturday there, and flew back home that Sunday. So it's not great. If you're trying to make this a vacation and go enjoy the ring, definitely do it. Take a week and go do it. But if your goal is to go there and just run the ring, I mean, heck, if you want to do some tourist laps, it's not that big of an ordeal. I mean, it's a lot of travel. Every time I've gone, I've flown to Frankfurt, rented a car, drove to the ring, and generally stayed at a bed and breakfast around there, which I'll do another kind of video about just some of the travel experiences I've had since I've gone 3 times this year and kind of had to figure this stuff out. But again, RCN racing, a lot of people ask me about it. Very accessible, minus that it's probably one of the most challenging racing events I've ever done. Now, granted, even here, racing in IMSA, in Pilot Challenge, again, the driving in that is you're driving some of the best guys in the world. But this was a whole different challenge, because even though I've probably got 50 or 60 laps now in the ring among my bunch of trips I've made this year, whether it was in doing TF laps or actually running in the events, I probably still don't know most of the corners there. And I think most people will tell you it's going to take a lot of time there to get comfortable actually running the ring. So one of the most challenging things I've ever done driving-wise, and even amongst the events, even though they're not position-based racing, in order to get faster laps and to get the lowest average time, you still have to make some passes because you can't be held up by other cars. The car culture there as far as racing is insane. You're going to be racing everything in this series, from Suzuki Swifts to 911 Cup cars, GT4 cars. And so as you're out there, again, I did this in a relatively slower car in E93 series. It's probably a 9-minute lap around there, one of those cars on average. You're going to be getting passed by a lot of faster cars, and you might even be doing a lot of passing a lot of the slower cars. So managing traffic at the ring is super, super different than it is here in the States, just because it's such, you're talking 9-10 minute laps there. And just trying to maintain your focus throughout this event, it's pretty tough. Again, the elevation changes there, you can't mimic it. I've done hundreds of laps probably as a kid on Gran Turismo at the ring, and actually doing it, even right now, if I were to go right now and as many laps that I have there, it's still like, where are we at? What kind of corner are we at? So a lot of differences there in racing. You've never really lived until you've gone and sat through a German drivers meeting and you don't understand what in the world's going on. So it's some big boy stuff together and actually try to race there. Again, it's way different than racing in the States, just because again, different country, don't understand kind of what's going on. Obviously, rules internationally are pretty much the same as far as yellow flags and how that's going to work. But just trying to pick up the nuances of what's going on, how the event's actually going to be run is kind of a challenge. So definitely going to go back this year. I'll do a couple more, share my experience with you about how to travel there, how to find a car there. I've had a great experience there with Ring Freaks, with Ray and those guys, the events I've run. And even just renting cars for TLF laps to try to get my hole in the track. Went to RSR Nurburgring and driven a bunch of cool stuff there. So I think a majority of the racing I want to do next year is going to be over there. I've really come to enjoy the country and getting around there. And yes, the travel's kind of a bear to get over there. But I've had a lot of enjoyment racing over there. So I'll kind of document a little more of this stuff for you guys that want to go over there. I was pretty surprised how many people actually reached out to me and asked about how to go about doing this, how to find the car. So I'll spend a little time and kind of tell you what I did. I'm by no means an expert in racing over the Nurburgring, because every time I go over there, I'm trying to figure out what on earth's going on. But I'd like to share that with you guys and hopefully help you guys on your own journeys if you decide to go out there. So stay tuned for more, and I'll see how I can help you guys.